It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of September 22nd, 2000. We got 3 movies to look at today, so let's not waste any more time, and let's go ahead and jump on it. We'll start off with the, I guess, biggest new release of the weekend, because it really wasn't a big new release in terms of financial gain, but it was the highest grossing of the 3 films that we were here to look at, and that is Urban Legend's Final Cut.
What's under this ice? What's down this road? What's inside this tunnel is what legends are made of. Urban Legends Final Cut.
Who's there?
Rated R. Open September 22nd.
This is, of course, the sequel to the 1998 movie Urban Legend, which was a massive hit when that came out. This one, not so much. I mean, it was still a very small budgeted film, so it's obviously going to make its money back in terms of worldwide gross and all that. But it definitely was a step down compared to the first movie's initial success. And basically, you have a story where you have a film student being stalked by a serial killer in a fencing mask who begins murdering the crew members of this thesis film about urban legends. And really, we're going to get to Blair Witch 2 later in the next couple of weeks. From this point in time, I should say. It should be the next couple of days, actually. But that movie is notoriously known for being a sequel that has nothing to do with the original film, The Blair Witch Project. This movie kind of has that same feeling, too, except this time you see a character that's very similar to the one from the first movie. But this... yeah, this one's definitely not what they probably wanted from this movie in particular. I mean, it feels like a movie they're trying their hardest to make the next Scream, because the Scream franchise had been dead dead at this point, and so they needed a new horror franchise to up the game here. And why not Urban Legend? And you start to see why once you see the film. It really does not have anything too interesting or too investing to say about it. Good casting in here. I mean, Jennifer Morrison, Once Upon a Time, Hart Bochner, pretty well-known actor from his work on, I can't even remember his work now. Stuff like Die Hard, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. I thought it was in a TV show around that time. That's what I was trying to think of. But no, of course, he's in Die Hard, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, a bunch of other movies, too. Anthony Anderson's also in here. Loretta Devine's also in here as well. The director of this is John Ottman, who's mostly known as a scorer, as a musician, a composer, who does a lot of work with Bryan Singer, and composed a lot of his early works. He's also an editor, too. And I guess this was his attempt to try to move into directing, which probably didn't work out so well. One of the co-writers of this is Scott Derrickson, who, of course, has gone on to become a prolific filmmaker of his own right, writing and directing Sinister and Sinister 2, The Black Phone recently. So, I mean, I guess there's that to look at, but other than that, though, the movie itself really is not that interesting or exciting at all. It's just kind of a generic slasher movie with nothing really exciting about it. Kind of like with the last movie, you can kind of predict who's going to be the serial killer right from the get-go. And, yeah, the end result isn't as good as you think it might be. So, yeah. Urban Legend's Final Cut, not worth it in the end. But let's get to a good horror movie that came out this weekend, even though it originally came out probably 27 years ago at this point in time. It's the director's cut of The Exorcist.
It is the scariest movie of all time, in a terrifying version you've never seen.
That thing upstairs isn't my daughter.
Where's Reagan? In here, with us. The most electrifying movie of the 20th century.
She says she's the devil himself.
Returns in a thrilling, expanded version with footage that has never been seen before. The Exorcist. The version you've never seen. Rated R.
So this is a director's cut version of The Exorcist, done by William Friedkin, which added about 11 minutes more scenes that were cut from the original release. Specifically, most notably, the scene where Reagan walks down the stairs like a spider. That backward is the spider crawl down the stairs, which at times can look pretty cheesy. I guess that was the reason why they cut it, because they didn't feel like it was really that scary overall. But the context of it all is generally scary enough, and at times it can look scary at times, but then other times you can kind of see why they cut it. But this was a little bit of a hit as well. But most notably, it just makes you go back to when this movie came out, because this is going to be about a couple of days from this time period, from this time where I'm recording this right now, we're about 4 days away from the 50th anniversary of this movie's release in theaters, and really, it's interesting to go back and look at that history of when this movie came out, because, you know, there are videos online where people waited in long lines during cold weather in the winter to go see this movie. The movie sold out like crazy. Warner Brothers at the time booked it into these theaters under four-wall distribution rental agreements, which was the first time a major studio had done that. And viewers actually had some adverse physical reactions. People fainted. There was vomiting. There's such scenes such as a cerebral I need to say this word. Cerebral angiography. I made that much harder than it needed to be, but cerebral God damn it. Cerebral angiography. I am not saying it again. Alright, let's move on here. And it makes it even more interesting when you realize that many children were also allowed to see this movie. That actually led to them changing, the MPA basically changing their ratings pretty much. And they had to accommodate Warner Brothers by giving the film an R rating instead of the X rating to ensure the trouble production its commercial success. And even some cities actually attempted to ban it and prevent children from attending it. The film went on to make a ton of money back then, and if you go online, you can still find a lot of videos from back then of people coming out of the movie theater and talking about their reactions to the movie, which is something that you would never think of by today's standards. I mean, look at how far The Exorcist has come from the time this movie came out to what we just had this year with The Exorcist Believer, which nobody gave a crap about that movie whatsoever. Nobody was scared by it. Nobody talked about it the way they did with the original Exorcist. I mean, this movie held so much in people's mindset, not just the people that went to see it, but the people who made the movie too. That story is pretty much is more than out there in the open about the trouble production that this movie had. They had to do this in hot deserts. They had to do this in sets that were very cold. Many people got injured. Some people died on set. There were some unusual accidents during the set of the shooting. It took twice as long for this movie to get made. Cost 3 times the budget it did. And it led to many people to believe that the movie was cursed. But of course, like I said, it went on to go on to have this history. Maybe because people saw the history behind what was going on behind the scenes at the time, and said, you know what, if this craziness is going on because of this movie, it has to be good. And yeah, the movie still kind of holds up after all these years. Would I say it's the scariest movie of all time? Not quite. It's definitely up there, but I could think of a couple of other ones. You know, Poltergeist to me still very much is up there for me, and that was PG. But the stuff they were able to do in that movie, good lord, like that clown, man, that's something that will live in my memory for the rest of my life. Even when I saw it as a kid, I thought that scared me to death, and even after all these years, it's still scary to this very day. But like that movie still holds up, still is up there. I'm sure there's some other ones too, but this would definitely be up there. I mean, there are some things in there that, in terms of visual works, what they were able to do back in 1973 to make this work is it's impressive how well some of it holds up. And there are still some moments of uncomfortableness, terrifyingness, if that's even a word I want to use here. But yeah, like you could definitely tell this movie had such a lasting impact on a lot of people who went to go see it then. And even nowadays, when you see this movie again, like some of this stuff still holds up to this very day. I mean, it's hard to top what they were able to do here, and they have not been able to do that. The best things that have come out of The Exorcist since this movie has come out, Exorcist 3, which is a criminally underrated horror film, and then the Exorcist TV series that was on Fox for a couple of years, but unfortunately got canceled after a couple of seasons. Like, those are still the best things that have come out of The Exorcist since this movie has come out, and, you know, 50 years later, this movie still has a lasting impact with so many people, and you can see why. It's still a really good movie after all these years, and it would have been interesting to see how this would have played up on the big screen. If I was older, I probably would have gone to see it, but yeah, it's a movie that still very much holds up to this very day. It's still a classic movie, classic horror movie, one of the best horror movies ever. I mean, what more can you say about it? The Exorcist, it's definitely one of the best ones. It's one of the ones you'll never forget when you see it. So, let's go ahead and get out of the horror genre here and go into our last movie here, the comedy Woman on Top.
Give me another chance.
Your mouth will water.
Wow, you look beautiful.
Like the air, like the wind, like a fish. Not like a...
Your lips will burn.
Kiss me, Isabella.
Oh my God.
Your heart will race. Penelope Cruz. Woman on top.
That much butter could kill a guy.
Or as the film should be called, let's look at Penelope Cruz for an hour and a half, because, hey, why not? I mean, have you seen her? Good lord. She plays a sultry Brazilian belle who's plagued by chronic motion sickness and a gifted chef and needs to be in control of every aspect of her life. In her car, in the kitchen, on the dance floor, and of course during sex. Needless to say, this confusing situation drives Isabel's husband, Tojino, played by Mario Benicio, if I'm pronouncing that, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, crazy, and after one infidelity too many, the feisty young woman decides to do what she knows best, take over the reins of her life and move to San Francisco. There she meets a brilliant career as the presenter of a television cooking show awaits Isabella, and for the first time in a long while, she feels loved. Will guilty Tojino realize what he's lost? I mean, if you say no to Penelope Cruz, if you treat Penelope Cruz badly like that, you probably deserve not to get back with her. It's a movie that I've only seen little bits and pieces of. I can't say I really have seen the movie in general, but like I've only seen little bits and pieces of it. It really does feel like a movie that really does feel like it's trying to be like a movie that's just there just to show Penelope Cruz looking sexy for an hour and a half. I mean, that really does look like that. It doesn't feel like a movie that feels like there is really much of a story there. The story itself feels like something like you would see on like an NBC must-see TV sitcom. In fact, one of the stars in here starred on an NBC must-see TV sitcom around this time period. Mark Fairstein, who was in Good Morning Miami, which only came out a couple of years after this movie did. But other than that, though, there's just nothing there. There's nothing really about this that makes it stand out or anything unique or anything. It's just not worth it in the end. From the little bit that I've seen from it, I should say. I haven't seen it in full, but maybe if I see it in full, maybe I'll actually see something there. But from what I saw, I have no real desire to go watch this movie anytime soon, so that's Woman on Top. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. When we meet next time, Denzel Washington stars in the classic football film Remember the Titans. We also have Minnie Driver and Joey Lauren Adams in Beautiful, and also Best in Show from Christopher Guest and many of the people from SCTV. We'll take a look at those three movies next time. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, check out the playlist on the next page. Check out our Time About the Christmas special that just came out this week. I take a look back at the last year and a half of reviewing movies from the last 11 years, basically Christmas movies, and I have 15 reviews put together into one special holiday event. So go ahead and check that out. I'll have a link to it up in the corner as well. And also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. And don't go too far away, because after I'm done posting this, we have a new Time About the Movies flashback for you coming up with 5 notable movies from August 12, 1988, including Young Guns with Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen among the big cast in that film, Jeff Bridges and Martin Landau and Francis Ford Coppola's Tucker, The Man in His Dream, Michael Keaton in Clean and Sober, the infamous E.T. knockoff Mac and Me, and Martin Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ. So a lot of big movies to look at on this week's Time About the Movies flashback, and you'll see that right after this.